Oh.
I was only
You were post.
13 years old.
Oh. Oh, baby. I stand corrected.
Hi.
How you doing?
You got the shirt, Pam.
I know this is what.
Hey, how you doing? Long time no see.
Yeah, that was one of the guys. He wanted to do shirts, but he wanted to recognize the panoply. And I wondered if they didn't dislike that, him doing that, because I wasn't on there either.
It's like my neighbor, where I live at now, his daughter.
How you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. You gonna take my picture? I gotta take my sunglasses
All
off.
right, I'm gonna document the event unofficially.
Going up the stairs.
I certainly am. And
I need you to stop talking.
oh, that's okay. I understand there's a plank on I understand you're a plank owner. Let me see that sign. Wow. Congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
You got your picture? You got a good one?
No.
No?
Let me get a good one.
You want a good one, Bill?
We're getting it now.
Okay.
We're getting it.
Okay, smile.
We got it. You don't have to smile. Don't listen to her.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I even have a. You were gonna wear an Air Force shirt today?
Yeah.
Oh, that wouldn't go over good. Maybe people are funny like that, you know? You earned.
Good, how are you?
You earned.
Mr. Engdahl, so nice to see you. I'm so happy you're here.
Yeah, it's
Tell you what,
made
I
it.
really miss you very much. No,
I do
looked
too.
over, I thought
Don't
you
make
did-
me cry already.
I know, I thought it was your dad standing there.
One ceremony he gave me the Lucite plaque and all this. Instead of the 60th anniversary. Every time, it's on my bureau. Every time I see it, I say, I talk to Al.
I
And
appreciate
you're,
that.
and you're spending duties with him.
I know. As a kid, that was, I was like, I don't want this, but now it's honored to look just like him.
It's a pleasure to see you.
Good to see you too. We'll talk later, I'm sure.
I'm not gonna.
Where are we sitting at?
We're not. I don't know. Let me ask.
Or if a family member that's receiving or whatever.
These guys are just practicing. They're not really coming in
Oh, it's May. Yeah, 3 months.
Lady had puppies and he was like, let's go look at them. And I was like, no. And then he came back. I named her Kate.
Yeah, I'm kind of worried about that.
She likes to specify. I'm not heard that guy. I wondered if you were mentioning that. The guy I love it, baby. And I get up, you know.
I see AO. I guess not.
You got something for me. Why are you here so close? I love him. I was trying to figure out how fluffy he's ever
Yeah, the sun's on your camera. Can you make it smaller?
That's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
I want to get off porch, but that's my problem.
Oh.
I need to go on.
You can present it. You're going to present it to Commander Chapman and Lonnie are going to stand up. And they're going to do the photo.
There you go. Got everybody. Look at that smiling people. That's beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. If I was a
distinguished state, local officials, and community leaders, members, veterans, and friends of the Naval Submarine Base New London, our submarine force, and our great Navy and Armed Forces. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the historic ship Nautilus and Submarine Force Museum. I am Lieutenant Mixon, and I will serve as the Master of Ceremonies for today's event. Today we celebrate the 65th anniversary of USS Nautilus, SSN 571, completing Operation Sunshine, the first submerged transit under the North Pole. And to that point, before we proceed any further, let us offer a special welcome to those Nautilus veterans joining us who made that historic under ice transit and earned the moniker of Panapo. Pacific to the Atlantic via the North Pole. Will all Panapos attending stand if you can and be recognized. family members of Panopos, please stand as well. Thank you. And now will all guests please rise for the presentation of colors and remain standing for the national anthem and invocation. Color guard, parade the colors.
Parade the colors on, sir. Color guard, attention. Here, colors. Ready, cut. Forward, march.
And salute.
Colors, colors, march. Present. Colors.
Ladies and gentlemen, our national anthem. Color guard, retire the colors.
Retire the colors on, sir. Here, colors. Ready, cut. Forward, march.
Thank you, everyone. Please remain standing as I call upon Chaplain Amy McGraw, who is the Command Chaplain of Submarine Support Squadron 32 on base, to deliver the invocation.
Let us pray. Gracious God, it is good and right that we remember brave deeds and noble legacies. And we give you thanks that we are able to gather today to celebrate the historic voyage of the Nautilus. We remember not only the technical accomplishments, the Nautilus was certainly a mechanical marvel, but also a larger story. For if ships have souls, then it's the sailors who bring them to life. So today we remember the stories of courage and skill, service and sacrifice, commitment and honor, which once animated this boat, and which live on in the boats of today. We thank you for all who played a part in that worthy story. Finally, we give you thanks for the freedom and peace which we here enjoy, and which the Nautilus and her crew did so much to maintain. Long may their memory and your peace endure. Amen.
Thank you, Chaplain. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Now to offer the formal welcome, I'll call upon the Director of Submarine Force Museum and also in charge of the historic ship Nautilus. Please join me in
65 years ago beneath the polar ice cap. The ocean environment is the most inhospitable place in the known universe. Roughly 3 times the difference in pressure between this spot in which we stand and outer space is felt for every 100 feet below the surface of the waves. The crew of Nautilus, represented by our Panapo crew members here today, took this magnificent ship into those depths. And with the added complication of an Arctic ice canopy above them, that no one, save God the Creator, had ever seen or studied in detail. The risk was mitigated by skill and judgment, the environment by the quality of the ship in which they sailed, and the adventure upon which they embarked became a legend the world will never forget. Our ceremony today honors that legend and those men as best we can, but will never fully live up to the truly heroic action they took so many years ago. They changed the world forever on August 3rd, 1958, and today we proudly accept our charge to remember and preserve their bold and courageous legend for generations to come. So let's get on with it. Again, welcome to historic ship Nautilus and the submarine capital of the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Commander. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. Lonnie Barnett, President of Nautilus Alumni Association.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our distinguished guests, our Panapos and Panapo families, and especially to the extended Nautilus family that is here in this crowd today. First, on behalf of the Nautilus Alumni Association, I wanted to thank Lieutenant Commander Chapman, Lieutenant Nixon, and the entire crew of Historic Ship Nautilus for helping us make this occasion so special for our Panapos. And I want to thank the museum staff and the Museum Association, especially Executive Director Kathy Luttrey, for also helping make this event so successful. But what I really want to talk about today are pioneers. Since the founding of our country, we have honored and revered our pioneers. From the hardy souls who traveled west in Conestoga wagons, trudging through dangerous, uncharted lands, not knowing what was ahead, all in order to plant America's footprint across the vast width of this great continent. Fast forward a couple hundred years to the U.S. astronauts who ventured into the vacuum beyond Earth's atmosphere to travel through totally uncharted and very dangerous 240,000 miles to plant America's footprints and our flag on the moon. Yes, throughout our history, we've honored and revered our pioneers. Well, ladies and gentlemen, sitting before you today are 5 true American pioneers. And beside them are the surviving families of even more of those pioneers. These men, Nautilus sailors in 1958 that we call Panapos, left their homes and families to willingly travel. In the immortal words of Gene Roddenberry, to boldly go where no man has gone before. They traveled through dangerous, uncharted waters, not knowing what they might find. Frankly, not knowing that they would return. They knew that Nautilus could get stuck between 30 feet of ice and an underwater mountain, unable to back out. And just like the Conestoga wagon pioneers and the Apollo spacecraft pioneers, there was no rescue plan. Had Nautilus become stuck, that's where these Panapos pioneers would have died. They knew the risk, but in the spirit of every American pioneer before them, they went anyway, and they succeeded. They succeeded because they were and will always be submariners. The best men, and now women, that our country has to offer. Others today will talk in greater detail about this trip. I just want to tell every Panapo here today, and every Panapo who has gone on eternal patrol, I want to say this: job well done. America salutes you. It now gives me great pleasure to introduce our guest speaker, Captain Todd Moore. Captain Moore grew up in Ohio, graduated Hamilton College in 1995. During his long Navy career, he has served aboard the nuclear submarines USS Pasadena, Asheville, and Georgia. He commanded USS New Mexico as it conducted the first Virginia-class surfacing at the North Pole. He later commanded USS Montpelier, SSN 765. Ashore, Captain Moore has served with the United Nations as a military observer in the Western Sahara, as Deputy Commander of Submarine Squadrons 4 and 12, completed the Naval War College, and earned a master's degree in National Security and Strategic Studies. Captain Moore then served as the 52nd Commander of Submarine Base New London, before taking on his current assignment as Chief of Staff, Undersea Warfighting Development Center. Captain Moore's background makes him eminently qualified to speak today about the importance of Operation Sunshine. Captain Moore.
welcome all of you. Welcome Panapos and their families. Welcome state and local representatives of our governments. Welcome friends and family of the submarine force on a glorious New London GROTON afternoon. There is certainly a fair wind, I would say, a bit of a following sea, so I think this will be all right. At least the rain is held off, and we can be thankful for that. I also want to thank Commander Chapman and his crew who continued the fine tradition of his commanding officer and officer in charge forebears in maintaining an historic artifact that is at this pier at our side today. Especially the crew members of USS Nautilus, the thousands of crew members present, those who are present today, veterans and active duty, who have helped maintain this ship. This ship that changed undersea warfare forever, forged a new path of exploration, and demonstrated the drive, resilience and prowess of our nation in the throes of the Cold War. USS Nautilus and her crew epitomized what the Navy has done best throughout its history, and we've already heard a little bit about that. First, scientific advancement. The ability to craft the most advanced ships in the world, crammed with high technology weapons, sensors, and machinery to support any mission. Filled with sailors who not only know how to use that equipment and maintain it, but continually contribute to its further development. 2, exploration. The Navy has always led efforts to expand our horizons. From sending submersibles to the ocean's depths to sending astronauts to the moon. Nautilus's trip across the Arctic followed a long history of northern naval exploration. And 3, forward presence. The Navy comfortably operates in any environment, reassuring our allies and demonstrating to adversaries that they have no safe haven and no positional advantage over the U.S. 1958 saw USS Nautilus exemplify this fine tradition of scientific advancement, exploration, and forward presence. Hopefully today you'll get to hear a few of the juicier tidbits of how the bold and courageous crew carried out their mission. I, who as a citizen have my naval forebears to thank for my freedom, and as a sailor who have them to thank for their legacy of greatness, can only summarize the impact of their achievement. First, it quieted those who said it could not be done. Like circumnavigating the globe, climbing Mount Everest, or running the 4-minute mile, the accomplishment seems impossible until someone goes and does it. In fact, a position statement from the Chief of Naval Operations Office in 1950 stated that development of a trans-Arctic submarine remained in the realm of fantasy. Of course, what would turn that fantasy to reality was the indefatigable Hyman G. Rickover and his extraordinary team of engineers. They built safe, sustainable, and compact nuclear reactors capable of nearly indefinite submerged operations. Captain Anderson would later recall that it is difficult in this day and age how wacky that idea seemed to most people inside and outside the Navy. Yet it is commonplace today. Second, Operation Sunshine provided an inspiration to a nation struggling and despairing early in the Cold War. The previous year's launch of Sputnik had shocked the world. Combined with the spectacular failures of the first and second attempts to orbit an American satellite, President Eisenhower was searching for a win when he authorized Nautilus's mission under the utmost of secrecy. Needless to say, the celebration that greeted Captain Anderson, Commander Anderson at the time, after he was spirited off the boat on the 7th of August, 1958, to appear at the White House the next day, provided a welcome relief for those who were fearing for American technological superiority. While President Eisenhower congratulated the crew and highlighted the implications of future polar exploration and commercial use, Admiral Bendfeldt in Pearl Harbor spoke for many when he termed the voyage America's answer to Sputnik. And third, that answer to Sputnik was far more than a technological demonstration. Nautilus had driven to an ocean that no other country's warships could so freely traverse. Not only that, but the ocean was the Soviet Union's backyard. Encompassing 160 degrees of polar longitude, the USSR, with its long-range bombers and growing missile force, was a clear and present danger. The forward presence of Nautilus, quickly joined by her fellow nuclear-powered submarines, put the Soviets on notice and denied them safe haven. But again, from our vantage point, a train's polar submerged transit looks somewhat commonplace. We can recount the stories of over 100 U.S. and Allied submarines that have conducted ice exercises since Nautilus, and scores more which have quietly transited from coast to coast through the Arctic Ocean, responding to our nation's call for rapid redeployment. But before any of them could do that, the crew of Nautilus and the engineers supporting them had to solve numerous problems. They had to learn to manage the enclosed atmosphere of a submarine for days and weeks at a time. They had to figure out how to navigate near a point on the globe where the definition of longitude becomes meaningless. They had to prevent shipboard systems from freezing and handle dangerous condensation on the metal-skinned ship. They had to live in a world with no communications, no ability to surface if there was a casualty, and with only limited ability to sense the ice around them. They did all this while transiting waters never charted, sometimes pinned between the ocean floor below and the crushing ice above them with only feet to spare. The ingenuity of the scientists and determination of sailors to overcome these problems that not only allowed Nautilus to complete her mission, but gave the submarine force the defining edge in the Cold War and beyond. Sure, the USSR claimed its first submerged transit to the pole in 1962, but the Soviets would always remain at least 4 years behind and a ruble short in their efforts to best the United States Navy. Indeed, in determination to assure our allies and face down adversaries anywhere, anytime, lives on in the Department of the Navy's Strategic Vision for the Arctic, released 2 years ago. The document affirms that the U.S., as a maritime and Arctic nation, will maintain enhanced presence, strengthen our cooperative partnerships, and build a more capable Arctic naval force. Certainly on the backbone of its submarine force, which operates there almost continuously. We do this as the Arctic warms and barriers to navigation drop in order to foster compliance with existing international rules and assure a peaceful and prosperous Arctic region. That message began with USS Nautilus and Operation Sunshine. We have the Panapos among us, their shipmates and their families to thank for it. It continues with the work here at Electric Boat Naval Submarine Base, New London, and our local partners that perform in the name of freedom. Let us all give thanks for that.
Thanks, Captain Moore. The crew of the USS Nautilus that undertook and completed Operation Sunshine were pioneers. To recognize them through a roll call, please join me in welcoming Mr. James Morley, then an electrician's mate, second class aboard Nautilus, and Lieutenant Joe Degnan, United States Navy retired, then an electrician's mate, first class aboard Nautilus.
Pleasure to read you the names of the crew that transit the North Pole in 1958. Okay, good. John A. Aberle, Frank M. Adams, William R. Bruce Bruce F. Aquizat, Jack L. Beard, Ralph D. Barnhart Jr., Richard D. Bearden, Robert D. Bell, Nils A. Berquist, Charles H. Black, Freddie L. Bosworth Jr., Philip J. Boyle, Donald D. Brady, Denison K. Brees, Daniel K. Brickman, George G. Bristow, James Brown, William J. Brown, Arthur J. Callahan, Kenneth M. Carr, Ronald B. Cave, William S. Cole, Alfred A. Charette Jr., Boyd W. Konar, Thomas E. Curtis, Thomas J. Dean, Joseph D. Digney, Earl R. Diamond, Richard F. Dobbins, John F. Draper, Edward D. Dunn Jr., Wallace M. Durkin, Paul J. Early, Thomas Emanuel, Leslie F. Evans, Robert Bobby Joe Faircloth, Billy D. Coates. William G. Fernholm, William A. Gaines, David L. Greenhill, Donald P. Hall, Roger A. Hall, William A. Hanson, Dow R. Harrell, John W. Harvey, Walter J. Harvey, Gary D. Pettit, Albert J. Herrera, Joseph R. Higgins, Stonewall J. Hilton, Ernest F. Holland, James G. Urban, Richard M. Jackman, Robert N. Jarvis, Stephen M. Jenks, Ronald W. Jett. James H. Johnson, Raymond G. Hazebeck, Robert H. Castle, Robert L. Kelsey, Richard M. King, Jack L. Nisley, James B. Knott, Ronald R. Flotch, John Joseph Krozik, Raymond A. Kropp, and Jack B. Kurtz.
William G. Lawler Jr., Linus J. Larch, Barry H. Cleric, Alan R. Lewis, David H. Long, Pete Lyon, John McGovern, William J. McNally Jr., Joseph B. Marchand, Marvin Magnuson, John Rashaud, Roger Miller, James A. Morley, Richard T. Murphy, Stuart Nelson, Hercules Nicholas, James Norris, William P. O'Neill, Clemente Ortega, Charles Parshall, Gary L. Patterson, Charles A. Payne, John E. Pendleton, Robert F. Pfeiffer, James P. Phelps, Lyman L. Pilcher, James Prater, Clarence Price, Terrence Provost, Lyle V. Rail, Robert Rockefeller, Robert C. Scott, George Shabinas Jr., Robert Simonini, Frank Scholes, Malcolm Snellgrove, James Sordelay, Gilbert Spur, Robert Strout, Kirby Talley, Harry Thomas, Norman E. Vitale, Curtis Wagner, Archie Walker, Richard Williamson, Stephen A. White, Richard E. Wood, John C. Yule, and John Zarentke. I wanted to give a 5-minute talk about each one of these with
Thank you, James and Joe. In naval tradition, 8 bells indicate the end of watch. For those Panapos on eternal patrol, Rick and Joe Faircloth, sons of Panapo crew member, electrician's mate, first class, Bobby Faircloth, will toll the bell. Will all audience members who can, please stand. Rick and Joe. Thank you, Rick and Joe. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. And now it's my honor to introduce the widow Commander William Laurie Anderson, commanding officer, USS Nautilus, 1957 and 1959. Please join me in welcoming Mrs. Pat Anderson.
Commemorating. You know, in the Navy, it falls to the commanding officer the glory or the misery of failure. And what I'm about to read today, can you hear me now a little bit better? My husband was a modest, rather soft-spoken Tennessean. I told him that we ran the Tennesseans away out of North Carolina a long time ago. And so, anyway, for the 33 years that I worked by his side, he never failed to give credit to his crew. And even in the business that we operated, he frequently referred to teamwork. It was very important. Loyalty and teamwork were really how he conducted his own life in many respects. He wasn't serious all the time. I told somebody the other day, I did everything I could to keep from calling him sir. Anyway, what I'm about to read, you know, as the commanding officer of Nautilus, he had, for years after he got, after he even was out of the Navy, he he received numerous awards and commendations, and of course he was always honored and always responded when someone wanted information or that sort of thing. But he never failed. He never failed. When someone would say to him quite casually, well, this was the guy who took that boat up to the North Pole. And he never failed to give credit to his crew and to honor them. He acknowledged, he stood on their shoulders and so forth. So let me get on to read this before we all get blown away. This, as I said, I found these papers, this handwritten notes that he gave to, when he accepted an award in 1960, and I'll get on about it. He said, "It is not only proper, but essential that I accept this honor as a member of a team. This team is the great organization of the American fighting men. And it is, especially to me, the United States Navy. The submarine service, and most finally, my own previous command at USS NAUTILUS. The crew of the Nautilus, in one decisive exploration, charted a new route across the top of the world. This voyage was made possible by nuclear power and modern electronics and navigation. And it succeeded because of the teamwork and absolute loyalty of the men aboard, any one of whom could have caused failure. It is significant, I believe, that these men knew that this voyage was dedicated to peace and freedom. It is significant because in the knowledge they achieved a higher order of purpose and dedication. This country's atomic submarines have accomplished some remarkable feats by exploiting nuclear power and other scientific breakthroughs. They have made undersea voyages and explorations that have been little less amazing than if taken directly from the pages of Jules Verne. In my mind, the most remarkable feature of these submarines is not only nuclear power, not fantastic voyages, but the spirit of the crews who run them. American submarine sailors, like all fighting men, have achieved a number of qualities that have served them ideally in these atomic age pioneering trips under the sea. Strong among these qualities is faith in the ship, faith in country, in nuclear power, in their instruments, in their shipmates, in the Almighty, and in themselves. This attribute was brought out superbly on the day that I recall very well, just past midnight on June the 8th, 1958. The Nautilus crew went to their maneuvering stations and got the ship underway from Seattle. As far as the crew knew at that time, we were headed for a routine submerged cruise to the Panama Canal. A few minutes after leaving the pier, I announced to the crew that our mission was not to steam to Panama, but to make the first voyage from the Pacific to the Atlantic by way of the North Pole. The response was electric. Every man in the crew of 115 was not only willing to go, but showed clear evidence that he absolutely would not allow anything to happen that might cause failure. It was an overwhelming demonstration of faith. In this voyage, as in all others, teamwork and loyalty are equally important, but in an atomic submarine, these qualities have a special significance. Crew members realize full well that one negligent man, be he the captain or the lowest seaman, can wreck a submarine and cause a mission to fail. Loyalty, then, is very much a two-way proposition. It must work the traditional way up the line, but it also must work down the line. All hands must do a good job, and at the same time, each must help the other do a good job for their ship. This type of loyalty leads to superb teamwork, and it pays off, day in and day out, and especially when the chips are down. I think it can most truthfully be said that there isn't 1 ounce of unloyalty in an American submarine. I wish that all Americans could witness, as I have, this display of American spirit.
With us today. But it is important that today we recognize the accomplishments of all of those men that were on Nautilus during that special trip. Captain Moore covered the issues of how or why we performed that specific trip. Nautilus's first ice adventure occurred in 1957 from the Atlantic side. Nautilus went under the ice and transited within 180 miles of the North Pole before the operation was terminated. But it clearly demonstrated the capability of a nuclear submarine to make a transit of the Arctic ice under the North Pole. On 25 April 1958, Nautilus departed its home port here in Groton, and after transiting Block Island Sound and reaching Montauk Point, Nautilus turned south, heading for the Panama Canal, the Pacific Ocean, and a new adventure. Following a few port visits on the West Coast and solving a few engineering issues, Nautilus arrived in Seattle, Washington. This was to be the last port visit before returning home. On 9 June, Nautilus departed Seattle and headed through the Puget Sound. It was then that Captain Bill Anderson stepped to the 1MC and announced that to the crew, our destination would not be the Panama Canal and home, but our next port of call would be Portland, England, via the North Pole. The news was received with great enthusiasm throughout the crew. Everyone hurried to make sure their departments were ready for an under ice adventure. The engineering department, under the skilled leadership of Chief Engineer Paul Early, ensured the nuclear plant was ready. The navigation team and navigator Shep Jenks laid out the previously hidden charts to the North Pole, and we left the Puget Sound and turned north. After arrival in the Bering Sea, and after several attempts to get under the ice, it was determined that the conditions were unsuitable at the time to make a venture under the ice. So we turned around on 17 June, and after communications with higher authorities, were directed to Pearl Harbor so that additional surveys could be made of the ice cover. Captain Anderson had convinced higher authorities that Nautilus was fully capable at this time to make a polar transit. On 22 July, Nautilus slipped quietly out of Pearl Harbor and turned north for the second attempt to go under the North Pole. Again, the ice conditions were not perfect, but eventually on 1 August, Nautilus found the Barrow Sea Valley, the deep water entrance under the pole. Nautilus went deep, began to run to the North Pole, and set course north. Then on late the 3rd of August 1958, as Nautilus approached the North Pole, Captain Anderson went to the control room and picked up the 1MC And this is what Captain Anderson said to the crew at that time. All hands, this is the captain speaking. In a moment, the Nautilus will realize a dream long realized by mankind, the attainment by ship of the North Pole. And with continued Godspeed, in less than 2 days, we will record an even more significant accomplishment, the rapid transit of the voyage from the Pacific to the Atlantic Ocean. He followed that with a countdown. Stand by, mark, 3 August 1958. Time 23:15. For the United States, the United States Navy, the North Pole. Yes, that event was historic and was successful. But why was it successful? What made it successful? It was the American way. It was American ingenuity. It was the perseverance of men like Hyman Rickover, the father of the nuclear navy. And it was the men and women of Groton and New London working at the Electric Boat Company who constructed this wonderful vessel. The ship fitters, the pipe fitters, the welders, the electricians, the painters, and so many other skilled workers. Nautilus was the first and operated successfully for 25 years as part of the United States Navy. It's a tribute to the fine shipyard workers and the communities of Groton and New London. And on board, it was the leadership of the finest wardroom the Navy had ever assembled on a single ship. It was Captain Bill Anderson and his positive leadership. The skilled navigator, Shep Jenks, and Chief Engineer Paul Early, and other wardroom members, Ken Carr, John Nicholson, Steve White, Wes Harvey, Bill Cole, Don Hole, and more. And it was the wonderful sailors, the best ever. It was the well-trained members of the engineering department like Joe Dignan, Bruce Aquazette, Harry Hedden, Bob Fairclough, Jim Morley, Roger Miller, Darrell Harrell, and more. Critical to the operation was a skilled navigation team led by Shep Jenks with Chief Lionel Rail, Ron Klotch, and John Yule. And those who attended the critically important N6A navigation system, Perry Lyric and Bob Rockefeller, along with civilian Tom Curtis. And those keeping the critical Mark 19 gyro compass functioning, Roland Cave and Chief Ray McCool. And there were those who operate the critical sonar systems necessary for finding a safe way through the icebound seas. Chiefs John Michaud, Jim Morris, Al Charette, Denny Brees, a great team and very dear friends of mine. There were the skilled radio operators, Harry Thomas and Terry Provost. The weapons department with Dick Jackman, Art Callahan, Dave Greenhill, Ray Crop, and Nell Carson, our local boy. And significant to everyone on board were the members of the commissary department, Jack Baird, Tommy Dean, Roger Hall, Tom Emanuel. Nautilus was known as a feeder, and it truly was. And our very special Mr. Nautilus, John Crosset, was there to take pictures, always saying, just one more shot. Remembering the success of this adventure would not be complete without recognizing the contribution of Dr. Waldo Lyon. Dr. Lyon was then director of the Submarine Arctic Lab in San Diego. He was on board for the trip, and his knowledge of the Arctic and the ice coverage was critical to the success of the crew. I have named just some of the crew who were on board Nautilus on 3 August 1958. I regret that time did not permit me the opportunity to mention every wonderful member of the crew. Know that every member contributes significantly to the success of that historic cruise. from captain to mess cook. Everyone was important and everyone contributed. On 5 August 1958, Nautilus surfaced in the Atlantic Ocean, following a 96-hour, 1,830-mile trip under the pole. And when we surfaced, as always, the sun was shining on Nautilus. Then the most famous message ever was transmitted. Nautilus 90 North. Today we celebrate that significant accomplishment that occurred 65 years ago. It was an American accomplishment, a U.S. Navy accomplishment, a submarine force accomplishment, and a special accomplishment carried out by 116 very special men and those at home that supported them. God bless the United States, God bless the United States Navy, and may the sun always shine on Nautilus and those who served on this wonderful ship. Thank you.
Regardless of the era in which they served. I started attending many of the early reunions at the Groton Motor Inn when I was in junior high and high school. And I think it was at that time, when maybe too immature to be able to pronounce the word, that I first learned what true camaraderie was. As I entered high school and college, I remember working with my dad and Mr. Curris to help automate the alumni list.
Congressman Courtney also regrets his inability to attend today. As you know, his work is found deeply within the wake of the Nautilus, and he wishes he could be here. On his behalf, I'm going to give these remarks. For the world, our country, and the Navy, the North Pole, said Commander William R. Anderson, commanding officer of Nautilus during the submarine's historic pioneering transit under the Arctic 65 years ago. Just 10 years after the creation of the U.S. Navy's Naval Nuclear Propulsion Program, the world's first nuclear-powered submarine, USS Nautilus, SSN 571, accomplished the impossible when the ship reached the geographic North Pole, 90 degrees north at exactly 11:15 p.m., August 3rd, 1958. Admiral Frank Caldwell, Director of Naval Reactors, has said, "Such a journey was previously unthinkable, but this single event demonstrated the awesome asymmetric advantage that nuclear power afforded our submarines and America's national defense. The Nautilus could go to any ocean in the world, anytime, and remain there virtually as long as desired. The Nautilus was American-made by the best shipbuilders in the world, Connecticut's Electric Boat. And Nautilus was crewed by Americans from across our great nation, representing not only the best in the Navy, but the best of Connecticut as the submarine capital of the world. Today, on the 65th anniversary of the success of Operation Sunshine, I extend my best wishes and thanks to all who designed and built, and most especially crewed the Nautilus in its revolutionary achievement. Well done, Canada's.
Try it again, not so wild.
It was beautiful. I was so happy.
All right, we can get a picture of the guests coming out. All the Baham people. We only got 20 minutes to get to lunch.